during the month of October, we are going to take each Wednesday and talk to a different St. Luke's member about mental health awareness. And our guest this week is a member and also happens to be on staff here. It is Jay Kiel. And he's actually moving a little quicker than I thought he would tonight. He is on day 6 of a 10-day 10-mile-a-day run. Does that make sense? It's called 10 for 10 appropriately. So for 10 days in a row, he's running 10 miles is the bottom line. And he is doing that to raise awareness of mental illness, mental health, and to try to change the way we talk about mental health and mental illness and the stigma that is around that. So for more on that, check our Facebook page, web page. He was just featured on In the 608 on the local news. Lots of ways to find out more about 10 for 10 if you'd like to. But in the meantime, we are going to talk to Jay Kiel, the person. Yeah, I know, it's exciting.
For you.
So just in case, I've been blessed to call you friend for many years, and a lot of the people in the congregation know you, but just in case there's one new family, one new person joining us tonight or watching this online, please introduce yourself, tell us about your family, where you live.
Yeah, so I'm Jay Kiel. I am here as youth director, children's youth and family director here at St. Luke's. But I'm also, the other side of Jay Kiel is someone who is proudly married to Stephanie. And if any of you do know me, you know I am an overly proud father of 2 kids. And I live in Verona. And in approximately 2.5 weeks, I will move to Verona because the Kiels have decided that there isn't quite enough going on in the world, so we thought we would move a mile down the road. We're moving into a neighborhood in a spot that you'll hear a little bit in my journey of why, but a spot that works better for our family and our daughter. So, yes, Verona to Verona in 2 weeks.
So how long have you been on staff here at St. Luke's? And if you can think back, what are some of the things when you were interviewing, when you were first starting, and maybe even in the course of your time here, what are some words that you would use to describe St. Luke's, and what attracted you to St. Luke's? What made it stand out?
Yeah, so when you had sent me the questions, I was like, oh, that will be really easy to answer. And then I realized that I can't take all 7 to 10 minutes answering that question. And
you do teach confirmation.
Yeah. The kids might like me going long today, but the thing that I've been here for 4 years, the end of August marked 4 years, and I say this in the positive sense of both phrases. It has felt longer than that and shorter than that at the same time, but for the positive reasons of both. And what really drew me to St. Luke's was when I first came here to visit. I was intentionally trying to just kind of sneak in, and that was impossible. And actually, so if you don't know, one of the questions that's always asked of people when they're first interviewed by Deanna, like if they're new on staff, is decaf coffee real coffee? And that's because I don't know why, I just think that's a great question, because I drink caffeinated coffee an hour before I go to bed. But it was actually, I couldn't get out of here without someone saying, come get coffee with me. And I was like, oh, this place has something. And it was really an invitation to be a part of something, not bring something here. It was to be a part of St. Luke's and be welcomed into that. Was really, really interesting and frankly different than my other experiences.
As we move into talking about mental health and mental health awareness, I think a lot of people here would agree with me that you are a natural and passionate advocate for the youth in our church, the staff in our church, the people, everybody in our church, for mental health, inclusion, connection, positivity. But it's sometimes harder to advocate for ourselves than it is to advocate for other people. And so for you personally, when you think about mental health awareness, what does that mean for Jay Kiel? What does that mean for you personally?
Yeah, I think I have to start by, and I'll explain why I'm going to start this way. I have to start by saying that I actually am someone who's up here a lot. This is probably the most nervous I've been up here. And because I always get to be the one who talks about each of you. And that's why I love my job. The reality is that why I get to do that, why I believe in that, really is because of what God has used so many people, including many of you, to teach me and become confident and to be able to do that. But it's a different shift when you do it yourself. And so for me personally, it goes back a ways, and it goes to a time, so I said I'm an overly proud dad of 2 children, and we met both of our kids through adoption. And what led to us meeting our kids through adoption was a journey that included actually a lot of pain, and a lot of questions and a lot of doubt. And God heard a lot of things from Jay Kiel at various times of the day and night during that time period. And there were many moments for me, and I should say this more explicitly so you don't have to fill in the blanks. We had a journey of infertility, and we had a journey that included miscarriages as well. And there was something in that journey that we learned. We felt super alone. We went to various people, and out of 3 people we went to, 2 of them tried to explain how this was just God using this moment. Frankly, honestly, and boldly, it broke us. It completely broke us. And it was in that moment that we looked at each other and said, well, we're going through this alone. And then I would go to work, and I would tell the youth, remember, God is always with you. The church is here with you. We need each other. And then I would go home and feel alone. And it was in that moment, that journey, I shared a little bit about this in a sermon a while back, but it relates to my tattoo on my arm here. And it says peace with a footstep. And I was legitimately laying in a ball, crying in my kitchen. It was a really great sight to see. And I looked out the window, and we actually lived, our backyard butted up to the Mississippi River. And I looked out the window, and Stephanie and I both at the same time just saw the river just slowly flowing by. And we believe it was God using that moment just to remind us that it reminded me of an old hymn, Peace Like a River. And we looked at each other, and in the same breath, sorry, I haven't made it through this story yet. In the same breath, we said, each step in peace. And we said it to each other, never have said it before. And it was the next day that somebody reached out and just listened and was just with us. And it completely changed everything. That whole experience changed everything, and made us realize we weren't alone, made us realize statistics like 1 in 7 couples go through this. And when you're in a community, there's more than 7 couples. So more than likely there's someone that you can, that has had an experience that you can relate to. And so for us, it was it was that moment, and learning there's peace even in that pain, and that the river always flows, and that I didn't need to necessarily find an end point to the pain, but that I was flowing with God through it. And so the other side, what does that's a story, but what does it mean to me? Is that's actually why 10 for 10 includes running for me, because God heard most of what I had to tell God when I went out in the woods and ran. It's interesting because one of the things I felt was alone when people were with me telling me these things. And then when I was actually alone is when I felt the least alone in some of those moments. Because I would look at the trees in the fall and realize what it is to just, sometimes a tree drops a lot of leaves and sometimes just a few. And sometimes I just had to let a little out and sometimes I had to let it all out. And God was there either way. And so that's my personal tie into this, and also knowing that I needed people in my life. Like I needed to receive that as well. And so,
when we think about times of mental health where we find ourselves strongest, or we might find ourselves most vulnerable, there's a lot of conversation around the self-talk, the way we talk to ourselves. And I'm amazed at, there's a statement about you would never let somebody talk to a friend the way we talk to ourselves sometimes. What kind of self-talk goes through your head at times when you when you feel that your mental health is at its strongest and when it's at its most vulnerable? What are some things that some of the lies you tell yourself maybe, and some of the truths that you tell yourself in strength? I know you're working on that with 10 for 10 too. So what does Jay Kiel say to Jay Kiel?
Looking out here, there's people, including you, that have gone on mission trips with me that know that it's probably not good to get too deep into Jay Kiel's brain sometimes. But honestly, when I'm feeling like mentally the strongest, for me, it's here are the positive ways you can bring yourself into the world. So when I'm feeling strongest, it's you can go bring this this thought into the world. You can bring this part of yourself. As you mentioned, I tend to share some passions at times, and a strength is being able to live into those for a positive purpose. I think I do have to say I love that you use the word vulnerable, because I think often the opposite of strength is weakness, and I don't think that when we aren't as mentally strong that it's necessarily weakness, because it's what I learned, at least from my journey, is that we need to be able to feel that and not just push it away, because it's there regardless. And to be able to feel that and be with that and then know those things. My biggest one is actually it's the live for 10 for 10 tomorrow, is I'm fine. It is, and that's honestly a very vulnerable thing to admit, knowing my job here. But it is for sure the biggest lie I tell myself when things aren't as good as I want to pretend they are, is that I'm fine, I got this. It's just one more thing. I joke sometimes, it's just another cup of coffee, right? But in reality, is sometimes I just need to sit and feel it for a moment too. Yeah.
So God built us all for connection. Full stop, right? That's the way we're built. But within that, there's a continuum. And some people need, in order to feel spiritually and emotionally whole and fulfilled, some people need more connection than others. During these past 18 months, when things changed, and I consider you to be sort of on the high end on that scale, I think of you as somebody who, in order to feel spiritually and emotionally fulfilled. You need a lot of connection with people, and that changed. What have you learned about yourself and your mental health over the last 18 months that you didn't know before?
Yeah, I'm glad to say that you think that I'm even on that scale, because and that's actually what I learned about myself. Is that I always assumed that I always needed to be around people, and that was how I was me. And reality is that's still true, but I found out that I'm actually on that scale, at the high end of it, but I'm still on it, and not off on the other
It's not
page.
a separate one for you?
Yeah. And the part of, for me, I think what I learned is that to appreciate and dig into the ways that I do connect with others, that maybe aren't always the ways that felt as natural 18 months ago, but knowing that when someone just texts me and it says, hey, that I think in the beginning was, oh, well, they're just doing that because they have to, which really wasn't on them, that was on me. That was in my mind, right? And realizing that just seeing that as the authentic reaching out that it is, and being with people in that way was important. And also, I think there's certain things that you can't necessarily replace, but there's other ways you can connect. And I think for me, it was a friend of mine from high school that we were trying to find like all of the ways to like kind of sneak in like meeting up. And then we realized that we spent like 3 Zoom calls trying to find out, should we meet for Thanksgiving or shouldn't we? And then the 4th one, we didn't talk about it, and we connected over topics we've never talked about before, and just kind of like let some of those things go for a moment and just live into the moment for what it was. So I think that's, for me, what I take out of this, is that the moments are going to change and not necessarily always be what I want them to be. And frankly, most of the time, right? Like there's always going to be a little shift here and there. And to live in the moment for what it is, and then know myself and my self-talk, and be able to listen to that or live in that accordingly, and respond or talk myself up or down according to that. But yeah, I think the big thing is knowing that it's not always going to be the way I want it to, but if I spend too much time on that, I miss the moment.
So friend, in 30 seconds or less, what do you know for sure?
You are loved, you matter, you are enough.
Well done. Proud to call you friend. Thank you. you.